The unboxing of nothing, my complete emotional breakdown, while opening 12 perfectly wrapped boxes filled solely with old socks and expired coupons. My name is Alex Vance, and Christmas has always been my thing. Not just a thing, but the thing. The kind of person who starts listening to carols in October and color coordinates the wrapping paper. This year, my excitement was at a fever pitch. I was turning 30, and my parents, bless their eccentric, wealthy heart, had been teasing me for weeks about a truly extravagant, life changing gift. The buildup was intense. Every text from my dad, Robert, ended with a cryptic emoji, or my mother, Eleanor, kept hinting about stepping into the next phase. I was convinced it was something big, maybe a down payment on a dream apartment in downtown Seattle, or perhaps even a key to a new vintage car. Christmas morning arrived, and the Vance living room was a winter wonderland, the scent of cinnamon and expensive leather filling the air. My parents sat beaming next to the tree, which was practically drowning in presents, but my eyes went straight to the coffee table. They're arrayed in a perfect geometric 12-box configuration were my presents. They weren't just wrapped, they were perfectly wrapped. Each box was a different size and shape, encased in glossy, deep sapphire paper and topped with an elaborate silver bow. The wrapping was so meticulous, so flawless, it looked like a museum exhibit. 12 packages promising 12 different levels of magnificence. Merry Christmas, Alex, Mom chirped, handing me a mug of hot cocoa. We decided to do something a little different this year. Start with number one. I picked up the smallest, heaviest box, my fingers trembling slightly. This is it, I thought. The first clue to the big reveal. I carefully peeled back the paper from box one. Inside the sturdy cardboard was another layer of tissue paper crinkling with the promise of expensive electronics. I tore that away, and then nothing. Just a single yellowed old sock. It looked like something my grandfather might have worn while mowing the lawn in 1980. It even had a suspicious looking hole in the heel. I paused, looking up at my parents. They were trying badly to suppress their laughter. It's a vintage foot warmer, I offered, trying to play along. Keep going, darling. Dad winked, practically vibrating with suppressed mirth. I moved to box two, a long, thin box, the perfect shape for a new smart device or a fancy pen. I unwrapped it with growing unease. Inside, nestled on a bed of shredded black paper, was a single expired coupon for 5% off a Blockbuster rental. The expiry date was 2000. The laughter from my parents now spilled out. We thought that one was particularly nostalgic, Mom wheezed. I felt a slight flush creep up my neck. Okay, this was a joke, a prank. They were messing with me, and the real gift would be the 13th item, perhaps tucked behind the tree. I took a deep, centering breath and adopted their playful tone. All right, you got me. The absurdity is noted. But let's see how deep this rabbit hole goes. I attacked the next few boxes with less finesse and more aggression. Box 3. A faded receipt from a 1999 family road trip showing a $3 purchase of gas station coffee. Box 4. Another single mismatched old sock. This one was bright green and covered in tiny stiff lint. Box 5, a crumpled ticket stub from a baseball game I didn't even remember attending. By the time I reached box 7, a large square box that should have contained a sleek coffee maker or a designer bag, the playful flush had turned into a burning heat of disbelief and humiliation. I ripped the paper, then the lid, and stared down at an absolute bounty of nothing. A stack of 12 more expired coupons for everything from a free personal pan pizza at a long-defunct chain to a 2-for-1 manicure deal from 2008. I looked at the remaining 5 boxes perfectly wrapped and sitting there like silent, mocking monuments to my misplaced hope. The extravagant, life-changing gift was this. The entire setup, the cryptic texts, the elaborate wrapping, it was all designed to amplify the punchline. I got nothing. My parents were still laughing, tears streaming down Mom's cheeks. They thought this was genius. I felt something snap. It wasn't anger yet. It was a profound, suffocating sense of betrayal. All those weeks of breathless excitement, the imaginative possibilities, the genuine, pure joy of anticipation, reduced to a pile of junk and a bad joke. I stood up, pushing the table slightly so that the remaining boxes slid across the rug. You know, I said, my voice shaking and oddly quiet, I thought maybe this was leading to something profound, something meaningful. But this is just a waste of time, a cruel joke. Dad wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Come on, Alex. It's funny. It's hilarious. Lighten up. It's a memory. A memory of what, Dad? Of you guys setting me up for a total emotional breakdown on my birthday and Christmas morning. My voice finally broke on the last word. I couldn't stop the hot tears that instantly filled my eyes. I walked toward the kitchen away from the twinkling, mocking light of the tree. The unboxing was supposed to be the best part of the day. Instead, it was an emotional catastrophe. I need a minute, I choked out, pushing through the swinging door and leaving the 12 pristine boxes and the pile of worthless garbage they contained behind. I stood in the kitchen, leaning against the cold granite counter, the aroma of pine and roasting ham from the other room, a cruel mockery of the turmoil swirling inside me. My breaths were coming in short, ragged gasps, and I just kept telling myself, don't cry. Don't let them see you cry over a bunch of old socks. A minute later, the swinging door creaked open. It wasn't Dad who came in, but Mom. Her face, usually so perfectly composed, looked genuinely concerned now, the forced cheer of the prank finally dissolving. Alex, honey, are you okay? She asked softly, reaching out to touch my arm. I flinched away, my control finally shattering. No, Mom, I'm not okay. I'm 30 years old. I spent the last 3 weeks thinking about what incredible, thoughtful thing you had cooked up for my milestone birthday, and it was this, a joke, a parade of garbage wrapped up in $300 worth of sapphire paper. It was just a bit of fun, sweetie. We thought it was hilarious. Hilarious for who? For you two watching me spiral from ecstatic anticipation to utter humiliation. My voice rose. I spend all year trying to be the perfect, successful daughter you want, hitting all the targets, doing the right job, and this is my reward, a Blockbuster coupon from when I was 12. Dad. Robert walked in, then wiping his hands on a linen napkin. He looked less amused and more annoyed. That's enough, Alex, he said, his voice flat. It was an expensive joke, if you must know. We spent days finding those exact vintage coupons. The money isn't the point, Dad. The point is the anticipation, the emotional bait and switch. You built this up to be life-changing, and it was just nothing. I feel like I've been emotionally mugged. I gestured wildly. Where is it? Where is the real gift? Is it behind the tree? Is it hidden in the chimney? Tell me, or I'm leaving. Dad sighed, rubbing his temples, finally dropping his superior fad. The real gift is complicated, Alex. The boxes were the first step. They were designed to evoke a specific, powerful emotional response. I stared at him, my tears cooling on my cheeks. What emotional response, Rage? No, despair, Mom murmured, stepping closer again. The crushing, definitive despair of receiving absolutely nothing when you expected everything. You wanted me to be depressed, I asked, utterly bewildered. We needed you to be open to the idea of nothing. Dad clarified, his tone now shifting to the precise professional voice he used when closing major business deals. To the idea that the life you think you have, the perfect job, the perfect apartment, the perfect parents, might also be perfectly empty. He walked over to a cupboard that usually held the good china. He didn't open it. Instead, he pressed a sequence of quick rhythmic taps on the baseboard. There was a faint hydraulic hiss, and the entire china cabinet swung out, revealing not a pantry, but a reinforced steel door with a keypad. My jaw dropped. I wasn't surprised by the secret door. My parents were excessive. I was surprised that they were using it now. The extravagant gift, Alex's dad continued, walking toward the door, is not a thing. It's a truth. A truth we've kept hidden for years. And those boxes, the disappointment they caused, that was the ignition. The moment you felt so betrayed, you were ready to walk away from the perfect life we created for you. He paused, punching a code into the keypad. The fact that you suffered an emotional breakdown over old socks tells us everything we need to know. You are too emotionally invested in material things. We need to reset that. We need to prepare you. The steel door clicked and a cold air rushed out. Prepare me for what? I asked, forgetting all about the expired coupons outside. Mom stepped up beside me, placing her hands on my shoulders. Sweetie, your father and I don't just own a successful asset management firm. That's the cover. The company Vance and Associates is actually the logistical front for a private global organization. We move high-value sensitive materials and information for clients who don't want to show up on any official radar. We call ourselves the Grid. Dad finished pulling the heavy steel door open. Beyond it, a brightly lit staircase descended into a polished modern bunker. And this is the real next phase of your life, Alex. The truth you were supposed to inherit on your 30th birthday. He looked at the shocked, disbelieving expression on my face, which must have perfectly mirrored the moment I saw the first old sock. The prank wasn't cruel, Alex. It was crucial. It taught you that the wrapping is just a lie. Now come on, the real unboxing starts downstairs. The air that rushed out of the revealed steel doorway was cool, dehumidified, and sterile, smelling faintly of ozone and new machinery, a stark contrast to the festive clutter of the house above. It's soundproofed and shielded, Dad Robert said, gesturing for me to follow him down the descending staircase. The house is just the antenna. This is the vault. My curiosity, having violently displaced the earlier humiliation, was now paramount. I followed them down my satin robe, feeling absurdly out of place against the polished stainless steel walls. The stairs led into a vast circular chamber. It wasn't a drab military bunker, but a subterranean masterpiece, high ceilings, polished marble floors, and banks of shimmering computer consoles that curved around the perimeter. In the center, under focused spotlights, sat a single customized desk the size of a king-sized bed. Welcome to the Regional Operations Hub for North America, Alex. Mom, Eleanor announced, her voice echoing slightly in the immense space. It runs the logistics for the grid. The grid, I repeated, walking slowly around the room, running my hand over the cool glass of a massive interactive map that displayed global shipping lanes and financial data in real time. You said you move high-value materials, like what diamonds art. Sometimes Dad admitted, pulling up a chair at the central desk. But mostly we move people, information, and influence. We are the neutral party that ensures certain global dominoes never fall. We work for anyone, governments, corporations, intelligence agencies, who needs a problem solved without leaving a traceable signature. He tapped a sequence on the desk, and a holographic display shimmered to life. This is why the prank was necessary, Alex. Your entire life up until this morning was a precisely constructed cover. We needed to ensure that when the moment came, you would react with the necessary psychological resilience or lack thereof. You needed to see if I was too attached to the things of my cover life. I finished, feeling a flicker of understanding mixed with lingering anger. Precisely, Mom confirmed. The despair over the empty boxes proved you were ready to abandon the material fayad. That anger is useful. It's energy. We needed to break your perception of reality to make you capable of seeing the world as it truly operates. Dad gestured to the consoles. We are shorthanded, Alex. The gift is not an apartment or a car. The gift is your inheritance, a demanding high-stakes position as a field logistics analyst for the grid. He pulled a drawer from the desk and placed a small, simple silver key on the polished surface. It was the only object in the entire room that wasn't digital or high-tech. This is the key to our primary communication hub, Dad explained. Your job begins immediately. Your first task is to manage the arrival and immediate deployment of an asset codenamed the Kronos package. It's arriving tonight. Wait, tonight. I looked at the wall clock, 10:00 a.m. You mean I start on Christmas Day? The world doesn't stop for holidays, Alex. Mom said, her eyes shining with the excitement of the hunt. This is a critical operation. The Kronos package is a persona highly sensitive scientist who needs to be extracted from a difficult location and immediately relocated. The team handling the physical extraction is already in place. Your job is the logistical puzzle. Dad slid a sleek, custom-built tablet toward me. This tablet contains the full profile of the scientist, Dr. Julian Hayes. It details his route, his current threat level, and the requirements for his safe passage. It also contains the exact coordinates for the emergency landing zone we set up 5 years ago just in case. The coordinates are encrypted with a 6-digit key, Mom added, leaning over the desk. You must decipher the key using the information in the profile before 11:30 a.m. If you fail, the extraction team will be flying blind into hostile territory. I picked up the tablet. It felt cool and heavy in my hand. On the screen, a countdown timer had already started, once 29:40. So the whole point of the 12 boxes wasn't just to make me cry, I mused, looking back up at my parents. It was to test if I could handle being thrown into an impossible task with zero warning. We call it the stress test of disappointment, Dad confirmed with a thin, proud smile. And you passed. Now the real stress begins. I looked at the silver key, the tablet, and the massive glowing control room. Outside, my life was a mess of crumpled paper and expired coupons. Down here, my purpose was crystal clear. All right, I said, sliding the silver key into the hub's lock and feeling a surge of responsibility. Let's unbox a scientist. The silent, efficient pressure of the vault was suffocating. I sat down at the immense command desk, the silver key I had just inserted into the hub's lock, glowing faintly, confirming my access. The countdown timer on the Aegis tablet glared at me, 1 hour, 22 minutes. All right, I muttered, shaking off the last remnants of the morning's emotional whiplash. Let's analyze this Kronos package. I opened the file on the tablet. Dr. Julian Hayes, a biophysicist, had been working on a revolutionary, highly destabilizing form of energy. The threat level was marked critical. The profile was extensive, detailing his last known location, a remote research facility in the Faroe Islands, his psychological state, and every personal detail imaginable, from his favorite composer to his childhood fear of open water. The 6-digit key is hidden in the text, Mom, Eleanor said, watching my screen from her own console. It's a linguistic cipher designed by the grid's founder, your grandfather. We haven't used it in 20 years. Hint, he always hid the crucial information in the most seemingly irrelevant detail, Dad added, scrolling through a financial ledger on his screen, feigning indifference. I began to scroll through the profile, searching for anything that looked like a code: dates of birth, passport numbers, even the coordinates of the research facility. Nothing fit the 6-digit key criteria. Everything was far too obvious. My eyes kept getting drawn back to one specific dense block of text under the personal habits section. Dr. Dar. Hayes has a debilitating addiction to rare vintage French press coffees. Specifically, the beans must be harvested from the altitude of the oldest plantation in the Guadeloupe archipelago, preferably packaged by the 23rd day of the month and labeled with his original employee identification number, which he rarely uses, 999. This is it, I declared, my mind snapping into focus. This is the irrelevant details section. I started extracting numbers. 1. Altitude. The profile noted his preferred bean was grown at exactly 1,305 meters. Too many digits. 2. Oldest plantation. The profile mentioned Plantation Bonterre, established in 1788. Again, too many digits. 3. Day of the month, the $23 or $1 day. That gave me 23. 2 digits. 4. Employee ID. The profile listed his old, unused ID as 919. 3 digits, I had $23 and $919. That was 5 digits. I needed 6. I have $2 and $3 digits. I need one more. I quickly summarized for my parents. It has to come from the altitude or the year, but the numbers are too big. Think like your grandfather Alex, Mom instructed, her voice calm. He hated unnecessary complexity. He was a minimalist. I looked back at the numbers: 1,350 meters and $1,788 year. Minimalist. I remembered a small detail from one of my father's lectures about the founder's methods. He valued single digits, the elemental number that governs the whole. I immediately applied digital root calculations to the large numbers. 1788 / right arrow, 7 plus 8 equals 24. Right arrow, 2 plus 4 equals $6. $1,350. Right arrow, 1,350 is $9. I had $6 and $9. Which one was the key? Dr. Hayes has a debilitating addiction, I whispered, rereading the text. The addiction is the anchor. I looked at the Blockbuster coupon and the old socks sitting upstairs, my moment of despair, my anchor to the nothing. I knew the feeling of being compelled by one dominating thing. I focused on the highest value that anchored the information: the year 1788, the oldest plantation, the genesis of his preference. Digital root. 6. The key is the concatenation of the day. The old ID and the digital root of the year of the plantation, I announced, typing the 6 digits onto the lock screen of the tablet. 2399196. The screen flashed. Access granted. Nice work, analyst, Dad said, a slow, genuine smile spreading across his face. The screen immediately displayed the encrypted coordinates, now deciphered, and a live satellite map zoomed in on a small, barely visible airstrip on a rocky coast, the emergency landing zone. Target coordinates successfully transmitted to the extraction team leader, codenamed Atlas. Oracle, the Vault's main AI, announced seamlessly. Atlas reports immediate visual confirmation of the LZ. Excellent, Mom said, turning her attention to her screens. Now comes the real logistics puzzle. Just as the pressure eased slightly, a new alarm blared in the vault, a harsh flashing red light on the perimeter map. Threat detected, airspace breach. What is that? I jumped up from the desk. An aggressive counter-extraction team, Dad said, his smile vanishing. They were waiting for Atlas to commit to the LZ. They are high-speed military-grade interceptors. They want Dr. Hayes dead, or at least captured before we get him. Oracle damage assessment and intercept probability, Mom commanded instantly. The interceptors will reach Atlas's airframe in 15 minutes 30 seconds, Oracle reported. Atlas's airframe is too slow to evade. Intercept probability 98%. Atlas is going to be shot down, I whispered, the weight of the mission crashing down on me. No Atlas is going to be redirected, Dad countered, turning his focused gaze on me. You solved the first puzzle, Alex. Now solve the second. How do you lose 3 high-speed military jets, using nothing but a foggy coastline, a decommissioned lighthouse, and an old commercial airframe? The challenge was overwhelming, but the humiliation of the morning was now fully converted into cold, hard determination. I looked at the maps, the weather feeds, and the desperate flight path of the Atlas team. The real unboxing had only just begun. The red light flashing on the vault's tactical map was a violent contrast to the pristine calm of the subterranean room. 15 minutes to interception. A 98% chance Atlas was about to become scrap metal. The shame of those worthless boxes this morning was suddenly 1,000 times more useful than panic. It had cleared my head, leaving only cold, hard logic. Oracle, pull up the full environmental data for the Faroe Islands grid sector Epsilon 9. I commanded, my voice surprisingly steady. Layers, sea surface temperature, atmospheric pressure, and local communications traffic. The holographic map instantly overlaid with swirling colors. The area around the decommissioned lighthouse was a mess of low-lying dense cloud cover, a thick, almost impenetrable bank of sea fog. The interceptors are military-grade DAD, I said, running a finger over the map, tracing Atlas' desperate slow path. They'll be relying on high-altitude radar and thermal lock-on. Their weakness is low visibility and ground clutter. And Atlas is a commercial airframe. It's loud, bulky, and slow, Dad countered, leaning over the console. They can hear him coming, but they expect him to fly away from the coastline. I argued, my eyes fixed on the map. They expect the obvious evasion. We need to fly into the clutter. I pointed at the coordinates of the decommissioned lighthouse. Why is this lighthouse decommissioned? It's too close to a protected seabird nesting area. Mom answered immediately, pulling up a schematic. No electric output, no active radar signature, no light. Perfect, I breathed, tapping the map. Atlas has 10 minutes to reach that lighthouse's vicinity. Here's the plan, and it relies on two things, fog and noise. The plan 1, the dive. Atlas must immediately drop below 500 feet, low enough to be obscured by the dense fog layer and hidden by the rugged terrain, forcing the interceptors to drop altitude and rely on visual confirmation. 2, the decoy. The interceptors are tracking Atlas's distinct, loud commercial engine signature. Oracle, can you find any large, loud commercial fishing trawler that is not registered on a local grid contract in that general area? Oh, Oracle, affirmative, fishing vessel. The Sea Serpent is 12 nautical miles south of the lighthouse. Its engine signature matches a commercial profile similar to Atlas's. It is running on standard radio band. 3, the switch. I grabbed the headset. Atlas, this is Control. Execute Operation Ghost Lantern. Redirect to the lighthouse. Engage maximum ascent rate dive down to 400 feet. Do you copy? Oh, Atlas via headset, voice tight with strain. Copy. Control. Diving to 400. Praying for that fog. I turned to Mom. Mom, I need you to boost the radio signal of the Sea Serpent just as Atlas passes the lighthouse. Flood the enemy comms with the trawler's chatter and amplify the trawler's engine noise on the thermal scanner feed. Make them think the loud signal is still fleeing south. Using the lighthouse as a visual blind spot, swapping the signals and making Atlas appear to vanish into the fog. Dad finished, a wicked grin returning to his face. It's insane. I love it. Mom worked her console with blinding speed, rerouting local communications satellites. Boosting Sea Serpent's engine acoustics to interceptor band 3. Signal swap ready in 60 seconds. On the map, Atlas dipped dangerously low, skimming the waves. The interceptor, suddenly blind on high-altitude radar, plunged after it, their pursuit lines narrowing on the last known trajectory. Atlas is passing the lighthouse now, Oracle announced. Now, Atlas, I yelled into the headset. Turn 90 degrees inward, kill the main engines. Glide on auxiliary power for 60 seconds. Fly silent right into the deepest part of that sea fog. The line from Atlas went momentarily silent. Terrifying, agonizing gap. Mom executed the signal swap. The enemy pursuit lines, which had momentarily wavered, suddenly locked onto the fleeing path of the now boosted Sea Serpent's thermal signature. They sped off, chasing a boat full of cod and confused fishermen. Atlas report, I demanded, leaning so far over the desk I could almost touch the map. A faint, crackly voice returned. Control, Atlas report success. Ghost Lantern is a go. We are gliding blind, but we have visual of the emergency LZ. Engine startup in 10 seconds. I leaned back in the chair, my chest heaving, a wave of exhaustion washing over me. The time remaining on the clock was still 7 minutes 12 seconds, but the red alarm had vanished, replaced by a steady, comforting green beacon over the emergency LZ. The Kronos package is landing successfully, Oracle stated. Immediate ground security deployment confirmed. Analyst Alex Vance, you have secured the extraction. Dad put a hand on my shoulder, his expression a mixture of pride and intensity. That's what this family unboxes, Alex, not socks and coupons. High-pressure, zero-sum solutions. I looked down at my hands, which were still slightly shaking. I had just saved a team and a crucial asset using a fake boat and a patch of fog. The emotional sting of the morning was gone, replaced by the profound high of genuine accomplishment. The nothing they gave me was the foundation for everything that mattered. The job isn't done, I said, picking up the tablet again. The scientist is safe, but we still need to know why they wanted him dead and why they knew Atlas was coming. The security around this operation was compromised. Mom nodded, her eyes hardening. Welcome to the grid, Alex. We've got a mole. Find out who tipped them off. The immediate crisis had passed, but the tension in the vault intensified. The successful extraction of Dr. Hayes' the Kronos package was overshadowed by the chilling realization that our security had been breached. Someone knew our highly classified emergency protocol and had alerted the counter extraction team. I leaned against the command console, the scent of antiseptic and cold steel replacing the adrenaline in the air. This is an internal leak, I stated, reviewing Oracle's security logs. The access key to the emergency LZ was only available to level 5 and up, and it was encrypted with grandfather's personal cipher. Only a handful of long-term members would recognize the method. Dad Robert was already in full operations mode, his face grim. Precisely. The pool of suspects is small, but highly trusted. We're talking about men and women who founded this organization with us. The possibility of betrayal this deep is unacceptable. The enemy knew Atlas's departure time and its general trajectory, or they wouldn't have been able to deploy interceptors so quickly. Mom, Eleanor added, pulling up the communication records. The leak happened within the last 48 hours. My analyst training kicked in. I thought back to the emotional trauma of the morning, the careful planning of the nothing prank. The grid always relied on misdirection. If the obvious answer was wrong, where did the truth hide? We need to look for anomalies in access, not just communications, I said. A mole wouldn't use their own comms. Oracle cross-referenced all level 5 and 6 personnel who accessed the Kronos package file in the last 72 hours against personnel who simultaneously accessed low-level non-critical data. Non-critical data, Dad questioned. Why waste time on that? The same reason you wrapped those socks perfectly. I countered, thinking of the exquisite sapphire paper. To make the target look irrelevant. A mole wouldn't repeatedly access the top-secret file. They'd access a generic file nearby, like a regional maintenance report, to mask the real purpose of their login. Oracle's digital voice immediately responded. Query processed. 387 high-priority file accesses in the last 72 hours. 5 instances of simultaneous login with low-priority North America Regional Maintenance Report number 47. The 5 names flashed onto my screen. I didn't recognize any of them. They were high-level logistics and communications officers. One of these 5 is the traitor, Mom whispered, her hand hovering over the list. No one of these 5 is the mask, I corrected, my heart starting to race. The leak is likely not the person who created the clever login mask. The mole is the person who told them to create the mask. I pointed to the 3rd name on the list, Marcus Thorne. Thorne is the chief communications officer. He oversees the assignment of all login codes and access levels. He created the digital hierarchy these 5 officers use. He is the only person who would know which low-priority file would best mask the access of a high-level file. Dad stared at Thorne's profile, his face pale. Marcus has been with us for 25 years. He was like a brother to me. Then he knows exactly how to hurt us, I pressed. The login mask is his signature. Oracle. What is Marcus Thorne's current location? Chief Thorne is currently logged in to the secondary command center in the Bahamas hub, Oracle reported. He is scheduled to brief the European teams on their holiday blackout protocols. Perfect cover, Mom muttered. Business as usual. We can't confront him without proof or he'll vanish, Dad said, pounding his fist softly on the desk. We need to know who he reports to and what he sold. I thought again about the morning's prank, the 12 boxes, the pattern, the repetition, the calculated escalation of the disappointment. The mole was using the same kind of calculated pattern. He used the login mask repeatedly 5 times because he needed multiple confirmations on the timing of the extraction. He was selling the mission to an external client. I deduced. But what was the currency? The mole sold information, but what did they buy? I looked at Thorne's financial records on the screen. No massive influx of cash. No sudden asset purchases. Wait a minute. I zoomed in on a small repeated transaction. Every week for the last 6 months, Thorne has wired $10,000 to a shell company in the Cayman Islands. It's too small to flag, but too consistent to be random. 10,000. That's lunch money for a man in his position. That's not motive, Dad dismissed. It is if he's not paying for an asset, I argued, my voice picking up speed. It is if he's paying for leverage. Oracle cross-referenced that shell company with anyone who has ever threatened Thorne. The system ran the query. The screen went black for a tense 3 seconds before flashing a single name in huge red letters, Client 0, Victor Hawkins. Victor Hawkins, Dad whispered, his face etched with disbelief. He's the head of the syndicate, our oldest, most dangerous rival. He specializes in blackmail and leverage. Thorne wasn't paid, Dad. He's being bled, I realized. The syndicate is using those payments to keep him compliant, forcing him to leak grid data bit by bit. That $10,000 isn't a purchase. It's a ransom payment. I looked at the map, focusing on the Bahamas hub where Thorne was currently operating. He's giving them the last piece of crucial information right now, I said, pointing to the login status. He's logged in. He's about to hand over the coordinates of the Appalachian Secure Vault where we're keeping Dr. Hayes. We have to stop him, Mom said, jumping up. No time for an extraction team, I said, already forming a plan based on the environment. We're 500 miles away. But we don't need to get to him. We need to get to his comms. Dad, you taught me that the biggest lie is always the most beautifully packaged one. Thorn is using a beautiful lie, a high security brief to hide his betrayal. I spun my chair around to face the main desk. Oracle redirect all available grid satellite resources toward the Bahamas Hub's primary satellite link. Prepare a surgical, highly localized communications blackout, a digital equivalent of the exploding sock. The real unboxing was uncovering the true cost of betrayal, and now I had to shut it down. The pressure was back sharp and immediate. Marcus Thorne, the mole, was actively logged in at the Bahamas hub using a high security briefing as the perfect camouflage to transmit the vault's coordinates to Victor Hawkins' syndicate. Oracle status of the Bahamas hub satellite link, I demanded, typing furiously. Chief Thorne is currently utilizing the hub secure Q-band link, Oracle reported, transmitting data packets labeled Protocol Europe 8 Security Update, estimated transmission time 3 minutes 15 seconds. That's too long, I said, slamming my hand on the desk. We need to hit him with a kill switch, but we can't risk shutting down the entire Bahamas hub. That would signal the breach to the syndicate and compromise everyone there. A precise surgical strike is required. Dad confirmed, his face close to mine on the screen. We need to hit his specific uplink without triggering the hub's intrusion detection systems. I thought back to the training Mom gave me. The grid systems are designed to detect brute force, but they are vulnerable to sophisticated internal misdirection. Dad, you set the prank up with 12 boxes, right? A clear pattern of increasing absurdity. I said, my mind racing. Thorne's protocol. Europe 8 security update is a pattern. It's a standard high-priority data flow. We need to introduce a packet so profoundly non-standard that his specific uplink chokes on it. A packet that defies logic, Mom murmured, catching my drift. Oracle, do you have any archived, low-priority data that is highly corrupted and flagged for immediate deletion? I asked. Affirmative, the AI replied. File North American Regional Maintenance Report number 47, which was the login mask Thorne used, contains severe corruption in its image rendering subroutine. It is slated for deletion. I grinned, recognizing the perfect ridiculous weapon. We're going to give Thorne exactly what he's trying to hide, but we'll wrap it in 1,000 layers of junk data. Protocol the exploding sock, I announced. Oracle create a burst transmission. Encapsulate the corrupted image file from report number 47. Overload the packet with the digital root sequence of all the expired coupons we found this morning. My parents stared at me astonished. You're going to use garbage data from a 2-decade-old coupon book to create a denial of service attack? Dad asked, a flicker of pure admiration in his eyes. It's illogical, it's unnecessary, and it's the only thing that will bypass the system's defenses designed to filter relevant data, I explained. The hub will recognize the coupon sock noise as pure junk and try to delete it, but the corrupted file buried inside will flood Thorne's personal uplink with render errors, momentarily causing a catastrophic software failure long enough for us to cut the link. Executing exploding sock protocol, Oracle confirmed. On the holographic map, a brilliant non-standard digital pulse shot out from our vault satellite link toward the Bahamas hub. 3 seconds later, the red light indicating Thorne's active transmission flickered and died. Transmission severed, Oracle confirmed. Chief Thorne's personal comms are offline. Hub systems remain stable. We did it, I breathed, collapsing back into the chair relief, making my entire body weak. The vault coordinates are safe. You used the humiliation of the past to solve the crisis of the present. Mom said, a genuine proud smile finally settling on her face. That Alex is the essence of the grid. Well done. The interrogation. With the crisis averted, the hard work of accountability began. Within hours, a small, highly specialized Aegis extraction team was dispatched to the Bahamas hub. Thorne was quickly detained without incident, still staring in bewildered frustration at his fried communication uplink. Later that evening, the holographic screen in the vault displayed Thorne's face, defeated, resigned, and utterly miserable. Tell us who you report to, Marcus, Dad demanded, his voice devoid of emotion. Thorne slumped. Victor Hawkins. He didn't want the money, Robert. He wanted the leverage proof that I had been hiding my daughter in the witness protection program for the last 5 years. He threatened to expose her if I didn't feed him minor details about the Kronos extraction. He was paying your daughter's silence fund with that $10,000, I realized. Thorne nodded miserably. He wanted to know where the shard was heading so he could grab it after you guys secured it. He didn't want the shard, he wanted to control our security. The betrayal was complete, but it was rooted not in greed, but in a father's fear of far more dangerous motive. The mole is contained, I said, tapping the desk, But the larger threat, Victor Hawkins knows we're on to him, and he knows we have the Kronos package. He's going to escalate. He is, Dad agreed, his image nodding slowly. And now that we know his motive is leverage, we can predict his moves. We need to move Dr. Hayes immediately. And you, Alex, are going to escort him. Me? Yes, Mom confirmed. Your successful improvisation in the field, using the fog, the boats, and now the garbage data proves you are the most unpredictable asset we have. You are the only person Hawkins won't see coming. The extraction team is setting up for a high-risk transport to our secondary hub in the Swiss Alps, Dad said. You will accompany Dr. Hayes on the train. Your cover, a private security attached traveling with his eccentric paranoid client. My extravagant gift, the key to the vault had, suddenly bought me a ticket to the Swiss Alps, a crucial assignment, and a front row seat to an international manhunt. I was no longer the girl who cried over old socks. I was an asset. 2 days after Christmas, I was no longer an analyst glued to a console. I was on the move. The vault's sterile cold was replaced by the crisp, biting air of a remote, snow-covered German airfield. My cover was flawless. Mr. Vance, private security attach, wearing a subtle dark gray cashmere suit and carrying a briefcase that contained a specialized communication scrambler, not files. My client, Dr. Julian Hayes. The Kronos package was exactly as described in the profile, brilliant, high-strung, and profoundly paranoid. He was already installed in a private carriage of the Transalpine Express, a luxury overnight train set to wind its way through Bavaria and into Switzerland, where the secondary Aegis hub awaited us. This is the riskiest leg. Dad's voice crackled through my discreet earpiece as I boarded the train. He and Mom were monitoring my progress from the vault. Hawkins knows we have Dr. Hayes. He knows we're moving him. The train is anonymous but slow. Be vigilant. The carriage was opulent dark wood paneling, velvet seating, and large windows that offered stunning views of the snow-laden landscape. Dr. Hayes sat staring out the window, twitching. The train, he muttered, clutching a worn copy of the Bhagavad Gita. It's a linear path, predictable. They will anticipate the line. That's why we're not taking a straight line, Doctor, I replied, sitting opposite him. This train makes 4 unscheduled technical stops between Munich and Zurich. Each stop is a potential escape route, and therefore a potential ambush. We are using the predictability of the train to mask the unpredictability of our movements. I subtly activated the scrambler in my briefcase, creating a local comms bubble around our carriage. The first anomaly. For the first few hours, the journey was peaceful, the rhythm of the train wheels soothing. We were 2 hours outside of Munich when the first anomaly hit. Alex, we have activity. Mom's voice sharpened in my ear. A signal spike just registered outside the train tunnel 3 miles ahead. It's a localized, high-frequency signal, likely syndicate surveillance attempting to scan the train. Oracle, what are they looking for? I asked silently. They are likely seeking the unique biometric signature of Dr. Hayes. The AI replied directly to my earpiece. We need a distraction, I said, looking around the carriage. I grabbed the heavy velvet curtains. Doctor, I need you to step into the bathroom now. Dr. Hayes obeyed instantly. I pulled the emergency stop cord. The train lurched violently, throwing me against the velvet wall, before grinding to a screeching halt deep within a section of dense forest. Alex, why did you pull the cord? Dad yelled. Giving them what they want, I said, my heart pounding. I quickly opened a window and threw out a handful of old socks, the very ones from Christmas morning, into the snow. They were useless, yes, but they were mine, the ultimate piece of distracting trash. Syndicate surveillance is focused on the stationary train, Oracle noted. External thermal scans are focusing on the anomaly near the train carriage high-temperature fibrous material. The socks, heated by the friction of the train's speed, and the small, battery-powered tracker I'd secretly sewn into one were registering as a unique thermal signature near the tracks. The syndicate had found the package. They'll spend 5 minutes trying to identify the package while the train driver sorts out the emergency stop, I explained. We buy time. As anticipated, the train driver Furious got the train moving again after 5 minutes. The syndicate surveillance, having confirmed the package was a dead end, had lost valuable time. The ambush. The quiet lasted until midnight. We were passing through a remote gorge, the only light coming from the moon reflecting off the icy river below. Contact multiple threats. Dad's voice was sharp with urgency. 3 highly trained ground operatives just boarded the train during the brief stop at the last crossing switch. They're moving through the carriages heading your way. I checked my briefcase. My only defense was the comm scrambler, the high-intensity sound emitter hidden in the lining of my suit and my training. Dr. Hayes, under the seat now, I ordered. The lock on my carriage door was sophisticated, but I knew it wouldn't hold 3 professionals for long. I pulled the small communication scrambler from the briefcase and pressed a sequence of buttons. Oracle, can you access the train's internal diagnostics? Affirmative. Diagnostics accessed. Reroute all non-critical power lighting, heating, auxiliary power to the carriage's main door lock, I commanded. Give them a few thousand volts of feedback when they try to breach the lock. I could hear heavy, rhythmic footsteps approaching. The operatives were precise. They hit the lock. A flash of blue-white electrical light erupted from the door handle, followed by a loud grunt of pain. The first operative was momentarily disabled. Their hands burned. One down, two to go, I whispered. The second operative, wearing insulated gloves, used a kinetic ram to shatter the lock mechanism. The door burst open and he stepped in a silenced weapon pointed directly at my chest. Mr. Vance, surrender the scientist, the operative demanded, his face masked. I didn't reach for a weapon. I reached for the stack of expired coupons I'd shoved into my jacket pocket before leaving the vault. I didn't throw them. I crumpled them up and tossed them directly into the operative's face. As he instinctively flinched, an operative's natural reaction to unexpected debris, I used the half-second distraction to engage the high-intensity sound emitter in my suit, focusing a burst of piercing, non-lethal sonic energy directly into his earpiece. He dropped his weapon, clutching his head in pain. The third operative, seeing his partner incapacitated, moved to flank me. I executed the move. Maya taught me a quick, sharp sweep of the leg, catching the third man off balance. He went down hard. Atlas, we have the perimeter secured. I gasped into the mic, standing over the three unconscious men. The Kronos package is intact. The train, rattling through the gorge, was suddenly my battlefield, and the nothing I received for Christmas, the useless socks, the expired coupons, had become my most effective weapons of misdirection and defense. The humiliation was the ultimate disguise. Good work, Alex, Dad said, sounding immensely relieved. Zurich is less than an hour away. The transport plane is waiting. You are almost home. Almost, but I knew Victor Hawkins wouldn't let us cross the border without one final devastating countermove. The Transalpine Express was chugging into the final high-altitude stretch of the journey, the St. Gotthard Massif. Outside, the landscape had transformed into sheer rock faces and deep echoing valleys, the perfect terrain for an ambush. Zurich and the safety of the secondary Aegis hub was less than an hour away. I had Dr. Hayes securely hidden in the carriage's reinforced luggage compartment, accessible only through a hidden panel in the floor. The three syndicate operatives I neutralized were bound and unconscious in the next carriage, wrapped neatly in velvet curtain ties. Alex, we have a major problem. Dad's voice was tight with urgency over the comms. Victor Hawkins just initiated protocol blackout. What is blackout? I asked, my grip tightening on the briefcase. He's targeting the entire St. Gotthard rail system, Mom clarified. He's disrupting the electronic signals governing the switching tracks, specifically at the entrance to the main tunnel leading into Zurich. If the system fails, the train will be sent onto a decommissioned spurlin, a straight drop into a canyon. I scrambled to the carriage window, peering out into the twilight. Ahead, I could see the massive dark maw of the long tunnel entrance, flanked by the tangle of switching tracks. Hawkins isn't trying to capture Dr. Hayes anymore. He's attempting a mass casualty event to cover his tracks and eliminate our asset. I realized the ruthlessness of our enemy finally sinking in. You have 5 minutes to regain control of the switching system, Dad ordered. You must reroute the power from the train's main battery to the junction box, located 100 meters outside the tunnel entrance. I can't just jump off a moving train and rewire a junction box, I protested. You don't have to, Mom assured me. Your ticket for this trip was not just the seat, it was the blackout intervention tool in your briefcase. I ripped open the case. Inside, nestled beneath the scrambler, was a small, high-tech device resembling a sophisticated grappling gun with a specialized multi-pronged cable attached. It's a remote induction line, Dad explained. You shoot the cable out of the window. The prongs must attach to the junction box and the train's high-voltage power couplings on the side of the carriage. That will bypass the corrupted rail system and manually complete the circuit to flip the tracks. I need to hit a 4-inch junction box at 60 miles per hour in dim light, and then connect to a moving train's power source. I summarized, feeling the adrenaline flood back. This was even harder than hitting the digital route on a cipher. You're an analyst, Alex. Analyze the variables. Mom snapped, trying to encourage me. I looked at the window. The high-pitched squeal of the train wheels indicated we were accelerating toward the switch. Oracle, deploy all available computational power to predict the wind shear and the train's lateral vibration at the point of release, I commanded. Compensate for my firing angle. Compensations calculated, Oracle instantly replied. Release window 3.5 seconds. Angle 17 degrees downward. I pulled open the heavy window, the rush of cold air and the roar of the tracks momentarily deafening. I could see the junction box rushing toward us, a tiny target against the concrete siding. I aimed the device, trying to synchronize my breathing with the violent shuddering of the carriage. I ignored the paralyzing fear and focused only on the numbers, the calculations, and the single illogical, exhilarating joy of solving an impossible puzzle. 3, 2, 1. I fired. The grapple gun hissed, the specialized cable unspooling in a precise high-speed arc. I watched, heart in my throat, as the prongs smacked against the junction box, the magnetized tips instantly locking onto the metal casing. Connection 1/2. Locked. The second set of prongs snapped back and arced violently, connecting to the exposed high-voltage power coupling on the side of the moving carriage with a blinding flash of blue electricity. Connection 2/2. Locked. For a terrifying split second, the carriage was bathed in an emergency red glow. The whole train seemed to shudder violently as the full power surge was diverted. Then, with a heavy grinding clunk that echoed through the gorge, the tracks ahead shifted, flipping the switch just as the train reached the critical point. The train roared past the tunnel entrance, safely veering onto the main scheduled line toward Zurich. Switch engaged, target confirmed. Dad shouted, pure relief evident in his voice. I collapsed back onto the seat, disconnecting the induction line, which instantly coiled itself back into the briefcase. I felt physically sick from the tension, but utterly triumphant. The final call. Less than 20 minutes later, the train pulled into the brightly lit modern Zurich rail station. Waiting on the platform, surrounded by unobtrusive security, was a team of Aegis operatives. As I escorted a bewildered Dr. Hayes off the train, the team leader approached me. Mr. Vance, the Kronos package is safe. Your parents are on the line. I put the earpiece back in. You did it, Alex, Mom said softly. You passed every test. You solved every puzzle. You saved the mission. And the extravagant gift, I asked, looking down at the briefcase, my tool, my weapon, my inheritance. What was it really? It was the key. Dad replied, his voice firm. The 12 boxes of nothing, the socks, the coupons, were meant to destroy the Alex who valued things. They were the prerequisite for the gift. The extravagant gift was the knowledge that you could create something from nothing. I looked out across the bustling platform, seeing the world not as a predictable safe place, but as a complex field of variables, threats, and opportunities. I no longer saw wrapping paper. I saw potential energy. Welcome to Level 10, Analyst Vance, Dad concluded. You're cleared for field command. My mission was complete. The embarrassing, cruel prank of Christmas morning was the necessary emotional catalyst that broke my perception of reality, allowing me to finally step into my true, dangerous, and exhilarating inheritance.